They call it the Devil's Triangle, a vast stretch of ocean between Miami, Bermuda, and Puerto Rico. It looks like nothing more than endless waves and sunlit skies, but beneath its surface lies something ancient, something that swallows men, ships, and planes whole. For centuries, sailors have whispered of its hunger, and among the countless souls who vanished here, some names remain etched in mystery, ships that sailed into calm waters and were never seen again. The year was 1918. The USS Cyclops, one of the Navy AS largest ships, left Barbados carrying over 300 men and 10,000 tons of ore. The ocean was calm. The skies were clear. But within days, the ship was gone. No distress call, no wreckage, nothing. It was as if the sea itself opened its jaws and dragged the Cyclops down into a silent grave. Even stranger, two of her sister ships, the Proteus and the Nereus, would vanish years later in almost the same waters. It was no accident. It was a pattern. Then came the Carroll A. Deering, a 5-masted schooner in 1921. She was spotted drifting near Cape Hatteras, her sails torn to ribbons by the wind. When rescuers boarded, they found food still laid out in the galley, the crew's belongings untouched, and not a single soul aboard. It was as if the men had simply walked off the deck, into thin air, or perhaps into something waiting just beyond sight. But the Triangle's curse didn't stop with ships. It grew bolder, hungrier. In 1945, 5 Navy bombers, Flight 19, took off on a routine training mission. Radio transcripts captured their final words. "We can't find land. Everything looks strange. The ocean doesn't look like it should." Then silence. The search plane sent after them vanished as well. 6 aircraft, 27 men, all gone. Some believe they flew into a storm that shouldn't have been there. Others whisper of a rift in time, a portal that swallowed them whole. Legends say the Bermuda Triangle is cursed, a wound on the earth left behind by Atlantis itself. That the storms which appear from nowhere are not storms at all, but the breath of something alive, watching, waiting, deciding who never returns. And even now, in the dead of night, sailors claim to see phantom ships drifting across the waves. Their decks are empty, their sails flap in windless air, and sometimes, just sometimes, they hear voices carried on the ocean breeze, the screams of men who vanished, calling out for help from the depths below. The Bermuda Triangle does not forgive. It does not forget. And if you sail into its waters, remember, you may not just disappear. You may join the others, forever adrift in the Triangle's endless hunger. What is it about this place? What unseen force takes such cruel delight in snatching ships and planes out of the sky or dragging them down into the dark depths? What sinister game is played out on this watery chessboard of mystery? Or is there a simpler explanation, something lurking just below the waves, something that craves the taste of man and machine? What is this thing that haunts the Bermuda Triangle? The Bermuda Triangle is a region in the western part of the North Atlantic Ocean, where a number of aircraft and ships are said to have mysteriously disappeared. This area is roughly bound by Miami, Florida, San Juan, Puerto Rico, and Bermuda. Despite its small size, hundreds of vessels and over 50 aircraft are said to have disappeared in the region, with many attributing these losses to paranormal causes such as a magnetic compass error. However, most of these incidents can be attributed to human error, bad weather, or the rough terrain around the islands on the edges of the triangle. According to the United States Board of Geographic Names, the term Bermuda Triangle was first used in relation to these mysterious occurrences in 1964, when a group of businessmen met in Miami to discuss ways of promoting tourism to the islands of Bermuda. As a result of their meeting, a publicity stunt was created whereby a journalist named Vincent Gaddis wrote an article about a flight that went missing while flying between Miami and Bermuda. As a result of the stunt, a number of journalists began writing fictionalized accounts of people who went missing in the area. One of the most famous of these stories was written by George Sand in Argosy magazine, which claimed that a cruise liner called the Titan went missing after leaving Havana, Cuba. In his story, Sand claimed that the only piece of wreckage ever discovered from the ship was the lifeboat, which was found on the coast of Wilmington, North Carolina. While these stories are undoubtedly entertaining, it is important to note that none of them are true. There is no record of any cruise ship called the Titan going missing in the area, and the lifeboat mentioned by Sand was actually discovered in 1904, long before Sand's story was published. So, where did Sand get his idea from? Well, it turns out that he based his story on the disappearance of the USS Cyclops, which went missing in 1918 while sailing from Rio de Janeiro to Salvador, Brazil. On board, the ship were over 300 men, as well as a cargo of manganese ore. Despite extensive searches being conducted, no trace of the vessel or its crew was ever found. Another ship that has been linked to the Bermuda Triangle is the Carol Deering, which was found abandoned near the coast of North Carolina in 1921. When the ship was discovered, it had no crew on board and the nearest port was over 100 miles away. Despite the ship being in good condition, there was no sign of its crew anywhere. The U.S. Coast Guard conducted an investigation into the disappearance, but no trace of the crew was ever found. These are just two of the many ships that have been linked to the Bermuda Triangle, but they are by no means the most interesting. In 1945, 5 U.S. Navy torpedo bombers known as Flight 19 disappeared over the Bermuda Triangle during a training mission. The planes were flying from Fort Lauderdale, Florida to the Bahamas when they lost contact with the base. Despite extensive aerial and marine searches being conducted, no trace of the planes or their crews was ever found. Adding to the mystery, one of the planes was a search plane sent to locate Flight 19, but it too disappeared without a trace. With so many ships and planes disappearing in such a small area, it is not surprising that many people believe that there must be some kind of supernatural force at work in the Bermuda Triangle. However, this is not necessarily the case. In fact, there are a number of more plausible explanations for the disappearances. One of the most likely explanations for the disappearances in the Bermuda Triangle is human error. Many of the ships and planes that have disappeared in the area were new and inexperienced, and this inexperience often led to disaster. For example, the Titan cruise liner that featured in Sand's fictional story was a new ship, and many of its crew were inexperienced. Similarly, many of the pilots who flew in the Bermuda Triangle were new and had not yet developed the skills necessary to fly in such a challenging environment. Another explanation for the disappearances is the weather. The weather in the Bermuda Triangle can be extremely challenging, with strong winds, high waves, and thick fog. These conditions can make it very difficult to navigate, and even experienced sailors and pilots can make mistakes that can lead to disaster. For example, the USS Cyclops, which disappeared in 1918, was sailing in an area known for its unpredictable weather. It is possible that the ship encountered a storm that caused it to sink. Finally, there is the possibility that some of the disappearances were caused by more sinister means. For example, some people believe that the Bermuda Triangle is home to a giant underwater volcano that periodically erupts, causing ships and planes to disappear. Others believe that the Bermuda Triangle is home to a portal to another dimension, which sucks in anything that comes too close. While these theories are certainly intriguing, there is no evidence to support them. In the end, the truth is that we may never know what really happened to all of the ships and planes that have disappeared in the Bermuda Triangle. The area is vast and the waters are deep, and it is likely that many of the wrecks will never be found. However, that hasn't stopped people from trying, and in the years to come, we may finally get some answers. When we do, we will finally be able to put to rest the legend of the Bermuda Triangle and move on from one of the greatest mysteries of our time.